I'm responsible for directing our research in freight transport and logistics, and I'm working a lot of the time with in the urban freight transport field, and looking a lot at how policies in cities can be changed or can be used or adapted to try to improve urban freight transport operations. I think it's a very interesting period actually like that because I think that given that businesses are finding it quite tough at the moment and that there's a lot of pressure on business to control its costs and to think very hard about profit margins and so on, or even sometimes struggling to make a profit in terms of freight transport and logistics operations, you can think about people saying, well, the environment's just a sort of a nice to have thing, not a key essential. That would be one thing. The second is that people would be maybe just only focusing on the sort of win-wins where fuel saving must be good, I save money, I reduce CO2. But actually what I think we've seen is a kind of a shift that happened at some point, and I couldn't exactly pin down when it was, whereby I think many of the managers in businesses actually believe that part of their role is to improve their environmental operation. And I chair the Central London Freight Quality Partnership, so I see people coming from the business side and people coming from the public sector side, the London boroughs, coming together. And when the business people talk about their urban freight operations in London, there's no doubt about their commitment to wanting to improve things like safety, the standards that they're operating to, and as part of that, to improve their environmental performance. So, and I don't think that is just about win-win. I think it's actually that it's a belief question that they really want to be part of an improved sustainable logistics approach. People are willing to try something different, but you need to have things to try. You need to have something you can show people about what they might try. And going back to a point that we just touched on, projects. I mean, it seems to me that some of these European projects and some of these projects in cities are important because they give people an idea about what they could try themselves. And I know I was got involved in organising a study visit between London and Paris and London. And what was interesting was that everybody who came from Paris thought London was very good and was doing some good things. And everybody who went from London to Paris said, oh, isn't Paris good and aren't they doing some good things? And actually each of them copied a little bit that they saw in the other places. So that in the London case, some companies and some of the central London boroughs saw the electric cycle trials that were taking place in Paris, and they got interested in it. And getting interested was the first step towards actually doing the trial and then evaluating it and trying to see what was possible as a result of that. Can you make a sustainable business model of it? I think the answer on that's clearly yes for some of these operations. So that, for example, the cargo cycle trial, although I say trial, it's no longer a trial. It is now an ongoing business. It's never going to replace all of the operations in central London carried out by trucks and vans. But in a way, that's to miss the point. The point is the right vehicle, the right operation in the right place, in the right time of day in the city. I don't think there's a single solution. I think there are lots of different solutions, some of which fit together and some of which don't necessarily fit together. So I think we should avoid the search for a single solution because I think it's actually very counterproductive. So sometimes at the moment I hear a suggestion that, consolidation is the answer to city logistics. Well, if you look in the supply chain already, we consolidate quite a lot. So to suggest that what we consolidate already, we should consolidate more may be rather unhelpful. What we might need to look at is particular operations where changing the flow, where consolidating it in a different way actually has a really big payoff. Certainly in the past we can see people trying very hard to say, we have a London taxi, we should have a London lorry. Or to say, well, we need an electric vehicle. Whereas maybe what they should try to do is set in terms of goals or targets. And I think in cities that is difficult because I think in cities there's still sometimes difficult to define the problem and sometimes it's difficult to agree what the problem is. And so a clear example of that would come across with something like the time of day of delivery. If you shifted the time of day of delivery to the night time, you'd have many benefits. You'd have a much more reliable logistics operation. You might have much smoother running on the journey, so you use less fuel. You could perhaps use a different size vehicle, which would mean that the energy consumed per item of product delivered was reduced and so on. But then you have some disbenefits as well. So maybe you have some noise still. Maybe you shift the problem, the cost burden shifts from one member in the supply chain to another member. And so this rather obvious solution becomes, or this rather obvious initiative becomes very difficult to actually put in place because people are not sure what the problem is. Was the problem congestion or safety or energy use or a logistics efficiency? And of course the reality is it's a mixture of all those different things. But we have to sort of accept that it's complicated, get better at addressing how we can simplify it a bit, and then get better at getting the different people involved in the discussion to actually compromise and and accept a solution that might not be perfect for everybody, but that is a step forward.